Hi, we're going to start with Chapter 6, Ernst and Me. The next morning we were all up early. The children sprang from the tree full of energy. "What today, Father?" they cried. "Rest, my boys," I replied. "Rest?" they repeated. "Why?" "Because it's the Sabbath," I replied. "The Bible says to rest on the seventh day." What is it really Sunday?" asked Jack. "All right, I won't do any work. I'll practice my archery and we'll have fun all day." "That's not how you spent Sunday in Switzerland," I said. "Well, we can't go to church here, and there's nothing else to do," answered my son. "We can worship here as well as at home," I said. "But there is no church, no pastor, no organ," said Franz. "Our Creator made this beautiful tree for us. Its leafy shade is all we need," I said. "We will honor him here. Now, boys, go down and set the table for breakfast." The children, one by one, slipped down the ladder. "My dear Elizabeth," I said, "we will devote this morning to God. After hymns and prayers, I'll recite some scripture, then interpret a parable for them. They can have free time afterward. In the evening, when it's cool, we'll take a walk." She agreed wholeheartedly. After breakfast, the family assembled around me on the soft grass. We sang hymns and prayed. Then I told the parable of a great wise king whose subjects rebelled against him. Rather than crush them, this great king offered to forgive the rebels, and the king once again prospered in peace. "And so, my children," I finished, "when you are unhappy, remember the gift of salvation, and be glad for the blessings you have." I ended the service with a short prayer. After a thoughtful pause, we separated to do as each of us pleased. With Jack's help, I began tipping some arrows with porcupine quills. Franz asked me to make him a little bow and arrows, while Fritz asked my advice about uses for the wildcat's hide. "I wish I had some glue to hold these quills in place," said Jack. "Oh, Jack, Mama's soup is sticky enough," cried Franz. "Shall I run and ask for a cake of it?" "No, silly, look for some real glue in the toolbox," said Jack. "He'll find some there, and you're right. Glue would work better than the soup," I said. "But, Jack, you ought to respect your little brother's ideas more. Look at the useful things he has discovered, crawfish, figs, and more." Just as Jack was apologizing to little Franz, we heard a shot overhead. 2 birds fell dead at our feet, and we saw Ernst among the branches. "How's that for a shot?" he said, climbing down. He brought me the birds for identification. One was a sort of thrush, but the other was a small type of dove called an ortolan, considered delicious eating. Many more had come, apparently to eat the just ripened figs. By this time, Jack had tipped a good supply of arrows and was practicing his archery. I finished the bow and arrows for Franz, including a quiver. Off he went, very pleased with himself. "He looks like an innocent little Cupid," his mother said with a smile. Not long after, she called us all to lunch. As we ate, I proposed that we began naming local landmarks. "We'll feel more at home," I explained. It'll also avoid confusion. It's cumbersome to say the little island at the mouth of our bay where we found the dead shark, for example, or the forest where we found coconuts. Let's start naming the bay where we landed. Who has an idea? "Oyster Bay," said Fritz. "Lobster Bay," cried Jack, "in memory of the one that bit my leg." "I think, in gratitude for our escape," observed his mother, "that we should call it Safety Bay." Everyone approved. Other names soon followed. Our first home we called Tent Home. The inlet in the bay became Shark's Island. We named the reedy swamp Flamingo Marsh. Naming our leafy home was harder, but after some debate we settled on Falconhurst. The rest of the names came swiftly. The first hill we climbed, Prospect Hill, the rocky height where we looked for a sign of the sailors, Cape Disappointment. The large stream flowing past the tent home we named Jackal River. After lunch, the boys kept at their projects. Fritz prepared the wildcat's hide. Jack asked me to help him make Turk some porcupine skin armor. After scraping the inside clean and dry, we trimmed it, made holes for string, and tied it to the patient dog's body. We thought him quite handsome, but Juno was confused. Turk had changed his smell and look as though he were no longer fully a dog. After one sniff, she rejected his friendly gestures and kept her distance. Now that Turk was almost invulnerable, I made Jack a helmet from the remaining hide, and for the joy of watching him march around all important and proud. As evening drew on, I led my family in a pleasant walk through the nearby wood. We ended our Sabbath with a hymn and prayer and climbed up to sleep with peaceful hearts. The next morning, I proposed a trip to Tent Home by way of the stream. My 3 older sons and I carried a gun and game bag, while Franz carried his bow and our arrows. My wife went alone went unarmed, carrying only a jar to get butter. Fritz wore his margay skin belt, and Jack had on his new helmet. Turk scouted ahead in his new armor. Juno still kept a suspicious distance. Nips tried to assume his usual perch on Turk, but a landing on the porcupine skin armor made him think better of it. The little fellow bounded over to ride Juno. The flamingo, which was already taking a liking to us, came along on its long, stately legs. What a curious sight we were. We strolled on in the cool morning air, following the stream. The boys and dogs roamed ahead of me. Presently I heard a joyful shout. Soon the boys came running, Ernst in the lead with a plant in his hand. Panting but excited, he held it up to me. "Potatoes, potatoes, father," he gasped out. "Yes," said Jack, "acres and acres of potatoes." It was indeed potatoes. "My dear Ernst," I said, "this is a superb find. Potatoes grow quickly and easily and keep very well. Our risk of starvation has just dropped." "But come and look at them," said Jack. "There are thousands." We hurried to the spot, and indeed there were many. "It would have been hard to miss them," he said as we feasted our eyes. "Very likely," replied Ernst, smiling, "except that you probably wouldn't have recognized what they were." "Maybe not," said Jack. "So you take the honor of the discovery, and I'll be the first to collect a supply." With this he began digging and soon had a game bag full. The monkey began to imitate him, and soon had a similar heap beside him. We all followed suit, filling every bag, pouch, and pocket with a large supply. Some wished to return at once to Falconhurst with our heavy load, to taste our new find, but I overruled this and led us back onto the march. We soon reached the head of our stream, where it fell from the rocks above in a beautiful splashing cascade, and crossed into the tall grass on the other side. Here the tangled reeds made tougher going, but the landscape beyond was lovely. Rich tropical vegetation grew on all sides: tall palms, luxuriant ferns, brilliant flowers, graceful vines, spiny cactuses. The wealth of herbs included aloe, jasmine, and vanilla. We also found Indian peas and pineapples. The boys ate so much pineapple, my wife had to caution them against becoming ill. While they were busy, I examined the nearby shrubs and made a great find of my own, the caritas bush. "Come here, boys," I said. "Here is something even more useful than pineapples. This plant with the beautiful red flowers is a caritas. Its leaf filaments make good thread, and the leaves are good to crush and put on burns. The inside can be used to help start fires or even to bait a fish hook." "Ernst," when he looked up, I said, "suppose you had been wrecked here without matches, flint, or steel. How would you make a fire?" "By rubbing 2 pieces of wood together," he answered. "Try it," I said, "but start early in the morning, ready to work with blistered hands until nightfall. Watch this," I added, breaking a dry twig from the caritas. I peeled away the bark, laid the middle on a stone, and struck 2 pieces together over it. A spark soon flew onto the pithy middle, catching it on fire. The boys were delighted. I collected some of the leaf filaments and presented these to my wife. As we walked on, the boys pelted me with questions about every plant and shrub. I finally had to cry uncle. "Enough!" I exclaimed with a smile. I've never seen even a fourth of these before. Not even the most learned naturalist could identify them all, much less their uses. Even so, I discussed those I did know, and so we passed the entire trip to Tent Home. Upon arrival, we were glad to see that all was safe. I opened the butter keg for my wife. Fritz collected ammunition while Jack and Ernst ran down to the beach to capture the geese and ducks. This proved difficult, for the birds had grown shy. After some fumbling, Ernst came up with a clever idea of tying some pieces of cheese to long strings. These he tossed into the water near the birds, and then he grabbed for them. He pulled the food. When they grabbed for them, he pulled the food back. He soon led them ashore and joined his brothers in tying them together. While Ernst and Jack were rounding up the rebel birds, Fritz and I got a fresh supply of salt. This we packed on Turk's back, taking off his armor. We fastened the birds to our game bags. Happy there were not too many, for geese and ducks are heavy birds. Once we were loaded, we closed up our tent and started homeward along the seashore. A cheerful, pleasant walk soon brought us back to Falconhurst. While my wife prepared a delicious dinner of potatoes with milk and butter, I clipped the birds' wings and set them loose on the stream. Night soon came, and we climbed our tree and went to bed. I awoke early and roused Ernst in hopes of curing his laziness. After a little stretching and yawning, he got up, and I told him the plan. We would go on an expedition together and let the others sleep. He received this cheerfully and helped me to hitch a large, broad tree branch to the donkey. I had a plan to help us move larger loads. As we went toward the beach, I remarked to Ernst, "I suppose you didn't much care to be woken up and put to work at this early hour." "I don't mind, Father," he said. "I know I can be a bit lazy, but I'm glad to go with you. I meant to shoot some ortolans this morning, but there will be plenty of time afterwards. I think my brothers will hunt them, but without much success." "Why not?" I asked. "They will probably use the wrong sort of shot, and are likely to shoot up into the branches and leaves, which is very hard," he replied. "Son, you are good at thinking and observing, and I'm proud of both," I said. "Now you should try to get better at deciding, especially in emergencies. In such situations, by the time you consider everything carefully, the emergency may grow worse." Our work on shore didn't take long. I selected the wood I wanted and laid it across the branch. I picked up a small chest from the sand and set that on the pile. Ernst and I filled our arms with all the wood we could carry, and we started for home. We heard the boys popping away at the birds as we drew near. They hurried to meet us and were most interested in the chest. While I let them open it, I explained our absence to my wife. "I wish you wouldn't go off like that without telling me," she said. "It makes me nervous." She liked my sledge idea better. "We can bring my keg of butter from tent home." "Wonderful." As for the chest, it was only a sailor's, containing nothing but old wet clothes. The boys showed off several dozen birds. Over breakfast, they told how they had killed them, including failures and successes. Ernst had correctly guessed the mistakes they would make, but had not calculated how quickly they would improve and learn. They wanted to continue, but their mother said we had shot enough birds. "And is there any way we could trap them instead of shoot them?" she asked. "We can't keep using up ammunition at this rate." I agreed and told my sons to set their guns aside for the moment. I took Franz and Jack and showed them how to weave the caritas leaf threads to make snares. Then I got Fritz and Ernst to help me build a sledge. All were hard at work when there was a great flapping and cackling among the chickens. We hurried in that direction, but Ernst noticed Nips slipping away from the flock as if up to mischief. My son gave chase and soon caught Nips in the act. He was eating a newly laid egg, with several more hidden in the grass nearby. My wife was delighted to see the eggs, for the hens had not yet given us any. We resolved to tie Nips up in the morning until the eggs had been collected. Soon after, Jack was setting the new snares among the branches and found something very encouraging, a pair of our pigeons building a nest. Since this would mean more pigeons, I cautioned the boys against shooting near our tree and to be careful where they put the snares. Jack spoke for all when he said, "We like the snares, Father, but we also like to shoot." "We have only so much powder and ammunition," I said. "We have to ration it." "I have an idea," said little Franz. "Let's plant some powder and shot in the ground and grow our own." His brothers roared with laughter, and I had a hard time not joining in. I said, "Ernst, now that we've had a laugh, tell him what gunpowder really is." It isn't seed, Franz, explained Ernst. Gunpowder is made of chemicals mixed together. You can't grow it like grain, any more than you can plant bullets like peas or corn. In the meantime, I went on with my carpentry. To shape my sledge, with the front ends upward, I used already curved wood from the ship's bow. 2 such pieces made the runners, and I nailed short bars across them. Our sledge was ready. When I finished, I saw that my wife and younger sons had been plucking more than 24 of the game birds. They had impaled them on a long, narrow spike to roast. We can't eat that many, I objected. We don't plan to, answered my wife. I'm half cooking them, so we can preserve them in the butter keg. We may be glad to have them sometime in the future. You're right. We'll go get the keg after lunch, I promised. Good. While you're gone, I'm going to do some washing. And speaking of washing, would you start arranging the regular baths for the boys? I agreed, and early in the afternoon, Ernst and I were ready to start for Tent Home. Fritz presented us each with a neat margay skin pouch. We harnessed the cow and donkey to the sledge, then took Juno and headed for the beach. We reached Tent Home without event. After removing the harness, we began to load the sledge with the butter keg, a powder keg, a barrel of cheese, bullets and small shot, tools, and Turk's armor which we had left behind the day before. This engaged our whole attention for some time. This finished, we meant to seek a good place to bathe, but the cow and donkey were gone. We headed toward the bridge and saw that they had crossed it to get at better grazing. I sent Ernst after them and went down to the swampy ground at the edge of the bay to cut a large bundle of reeds. When I came back, Ernst and the animals were absent. I stalked toward Tent Home to find out what was the matter. There I found my son napping on the ground as both animals worked their way toward the bridge. Get up, lazy, I exclaimed in annoyance. What did I tell you to do? Look at the animals. They're about to go back across the river. Ernst awoke unruffled. No fear of that, father. I took a couple of boards off the bridge. They can't get across. I couldn't help laughing at his clever method of avoiding work. Even so, I told him, you could have been doing something else useful. Now go collect salt or something while I take a bath. When I came back, much refreshed, again there was no Ernst. I was wondering whether he was still gathering salt or perhaps had resumed his nap when I heard him calling out, Father, I've caught a huge fish, but I can barely hold him. Hurrying that direction, I saw him lying in the grass near the mouth of the stream, holding on for dear life to a fishing rod. The fish was trying to get away, or failing that, to drag Ernst along. I quickly took the rod and gave the fish some line, leading it gradually into shallower water. Ernst ran in with his hatchet and killed it. What a catch! It was a salmon weighing at least 15 pounds, a wonderful prize to take home with us. Great job, Ernst, I said. See what you can achieve when you stay at work. For now, at least, you are cleared of the charge of laziness. Let's carry it to the sledge, where I'll clean and pack it, while you go and take a bath. This done, we harnessed our animals to the sledge, replaced the boards on the bridge, and headed for home. This time we took the inland route. As we were passing along a grassy thicket, Juno suddenly barked and plunged into the bushes. What a great, swift flying leap! Out sprang the strangest-looking creature I had ever seen. I fired and missed as it landed in cover. Ernst, behind me, held his fire and watched carefully. Juno was confused and sniffed around, but my son saw movement in the nearby grass and crept up. When he was sure of his target, he fired at the spot with calm accuracy, and the new creature went down. Our quarry looked even stranger on close inspection. It was the size of a sheep, along with a mouse-like head and grayish skin. It had long rabbit-like ears, a tail like a tiger's, and a square squirrel-like front forepaws. Its hind legs were huge. We stood in silence for some time, for it resembled nothing I had ever heard of. Well, father, said Ernst at last, this is the weirdest creature I've ever seen. They'll get a laugh out of it back at Falconhurst. You've had a lucky day, I said, but let's try to figure out what it is. Examine its teeth, please. My son obeyed. It has 4 sharp incisor teeth, father, 2 upper and 2 lower, like a squirrel. Ah, a rodent then. What rodent can you remember, Ernst? I don't know them all, but there are the mouse, the marmot, the squirrel, the hare, the beaver, the jerboa. The jerboa, I exclaimed. Now we're on to something. This is jerboa-like, but far larger. It must be a kangaroo, an animal discovered first by Captain Cook in Australia. It carries its young in a belly pouch. Congratulations on being the first to find one in New Switzerland, I added, laughing at the name I had invented. Adding the kangaroo to our heavy sledge load, we resumed the march. Progress was slow, and we arrived late, but we got the usual bright welcome. 4 pairs of inquisitive eyes turned toward the sledge loaded down with unexpected things, but we too had reason to stare in surprise. Franz wore a long nightshirt trailing far behind him like a miniature ghost. Jack had on a huge pair of baggy trousers belted up around his chest. Fritz, buttoned up in a heavy sea coat down to his ankles, looked like a walking travel bag. There was much joking and laughter as my wife explained. I've been washing all day, and while their clothes were drying, the boys decided to dress up in the things they found in that sailor's chest. They've decided to leave them on for your amusement, she finished with a smile. It worked, I said, but it's also too bad we have so few clothes of our own from the wreck. They will soon wear out. Everyone was very interested in what we had brought, especially the large salmon and kangaroo. But Fritz treated Ernst Kangaroo in the dismissive way of someone who is envious. This disturbed me, but I could also see that my eldest was struggling with these unworthy feelings, so I didn't criticize him. I was very pleased when he soon reasoned out his feelings and joined pleasantly in the conversation, saying, "You must have had quite a day's sport together. It will be my turn next, won't it, Father? There is nothing to shoot nearby here. It's been a dull day." "But you were doing your duty, my dear son," I said in words meant for a boy, but the tone I used was for a grown man. "I left the family in your care. They are safe and happy. Excitement may bring a boy happiness, but duty brings a man satisfaction." I saw understanding in his eyes and left the matter there. With night drawing on, we hurried to butcher the kangaroo, preparing part to cook soon and preserving the rest for later. After the animals were fed, we made quick work of my wife's broiled salmon and potatoes. Every heart was thankful as we said our prayers and climbed to our well-earned rest.